Welcome to day 1 of Cyberse Week. Today we are going to learn the Add-Ignister combo, and I try to simplify it as much as possible. So let's get into it. So let's go over what full combo looks like. We will only be using a Chi-Chi from our hand, so we can pretend that none of these cards work. So first we summon a Chi-Chi, use its effect, and then we add Hikari, which is the yellow Add-Ignister. Link a Chi-Chi off, or Dark Infant, and then Dark Infant effect to add the field spell to our hand. So we activate Island, and what this lets us do is when we don't have a monster in our main monster zone, we can then special summon an Add-Ignister from our hand. Now we use the Hikari to add I Meet You. We link these two away for Wicked. And then we use I Meet You to reveal one Cyberse monster from our extra deck with 2300 attack. And then we get to add an Add-Ignister monster from our main deck, which shares the same attribute. Since we already had access to a Chi-Chi, which is the fire one, we now want access to Duel, which is a dark Add-Ignister. So we can reveal either Dark Templar or access Code Talker. So we just reveal Dark Templar. Now we get to add Doyon to our hand. Also, keep in mind that whenever you use I Meet You, for the rest of the turn, you can no longer use your non-Cyberse monster effect, which means now our Maxi, Ash Blossom are no longer usable for the rest of this turn. So now, since our main monster zone is once again free, we can then use Island again to summon Doyon to a link zone that Wicked points to. It's Chain Link 1 Wicked, and we banish Dark Infant from our grave, and then Chain Link to Doyon to add back the Add-Ignister monster that we haven't used the field spell on. So since we already used it on Hikari, we then have to add a Chi-Chi back since we normal summoned a Chi-Chi earlier on the turn. So we get it back to our hand, and then Wicked will add one Cyberse tuner from our deck. We have two targets, Varuru and Sigma. We usually will send Sigma to the grave with Mathmech Circular, so we want to add Varuru, the green wind Add-Ignister. Now we link these two off into Transcode Talker. When linked off, Doyon can add back an I Spell Trap card from our grave. So we only have one, which is I Meet You, so we just add it back. Now it's very important here to use Island first, because if we use Transcode Talker's effect first to bring back Wicked, we can no longer use the field spell. Okay, here we just summon Bururu, and this lets us send Ichiri to our grave. Now we use Transcode Talker to summon Wicked to a link zone that it points to. From here, we now have 3 monsters with different names. So we link all of them off for a Dark Templar Add-Ignister. Keep in mind we have to keep using this specific zone that I'm using right now on our right side. So now we summon a Chi-Chi with the field spell. We just summon it here to a link zone that it doesn't point to, because sometimes you might trigger Dark Templar when you're not supposed to. So we link a Chi-Chi off for another Dark Infant, and we have to put it exactly in this middle column. So Dark Templar will now summon as many Add-Ignister monsters from our grave to the link zones that it points to. Currently, we only have 2, but we can now use Dark Infant to move itself to the left. So this is why we needed to use this exact EMZ. So we don't really have to change attribute here. We just click no. And then here it's very important that you summon 2 level 4s and the level 3 tuner. From here, we synchro into Pegasus using Bururu and Hikari. But it doesn't really matter which 4 you use, since we'll get them back later anyways. Okay, so Nibiru effect to summon back the non-tuner monster that we used for the synchro summon. And now we have 2 4s, so then we can overlay into Alum version. And now we can add circular to our hand. Okay, now from here, we want to link off Dark Templar as a 3, our Alum version 4, and Pegasus as our 5th monster. And we will then go into Dark Fluid. Now, we have to summon it in this zone that Dark Infant points to. And what this does is gains tokens equal to the number of Ritual, Fusion, Synchro, and Xyz monsters we have on the field or in our grave. So we have Alum version as our Xyz, and then Wind Pegasus as our Synchro, so it gains 2. This means our opponent was holding onto Nibiru, they can no longer use it because this is pretty much an Appaloosa where it can negate monster effects up to the number of tokens it has. It also gains attack for each token it has during the battle phase. So why did we need our extra monster zone free? Well, now we are going into our circular lines. So we're sending Sigma to the grave. And then Sigma can only summon itself from our hand or grave if the extra monster zone is free. Okay, so now we use Circular's effect. And this gets us Equation from our deck. Now we link Dark Infant and Sigma into Crystal Heart. Crystal Heart can now bring back an Earth Link monster from our grave. And we only really have one, so we bring back Transcode Talker. So what this does is it gives Transcode Talker the ability to attack twice during the battle phase, and it also gives it piercing. So now we are just going to link off Crystal Heart and Transcode Talker into Firewall Dragon. And then from here, we link off Circular into Decoder. And we have to put it in the extra monster zone that Firewall Dragon points to. From here, we use Firewall Dragon's effect. It can target monsters on the field or in the grave up to the number of monsters co-linked to it and add them back to the hand. So since we have 2 monsters co-linked to it, we can target 2 things. So the first target is Kashtira, and the second one is Crystal Heart, since it would be nice for our follow-up. Now Kashtira can special summon itself by negating one of our Cyberse monsters effect. So we'll just negate Decoder. And now we link into Singularity by using Firewall Dragon, Decoder, and Kashtira. So here we just use Chainlink 1 Decoder to summon itself back. And then Kashtira can then target face-up monster we control and then make it unaffected by our opponent's effect until the end of their turn. So we just make Singularity into a towers. Now we use Equation to summon back Alum version. And it's very important that we put it under Singularity. Now we use Alum version's second effect to tribute itself to summon back Circular. We placed it under Singularity. If a monster that it points to is sent to the grave, we can then target one Cyberse monster from our grave to summon it. What this means is, we can then get back Firewall Dragon and put it under Singularity. From here, we have 2 remaining monsters, and then we just link it off into Splash Mage. And then we can use Splash Mage's effect to bring back any of the Cyberse monsters. Just make sure it's not a water attribute, since we will be linking it off or Heat Soul. And here, Firewall Dragon triggers, which will let us special summon a Cyberse monster from our hand, but we don't really need to, right? And then we just use Heat Soul to draw one. So this is the end of our full combo after we only used our 1-card starter, which was a Chi-Chi. So we opened with 5 cards in hand, and now we ended with 6. Even if they did have interruptions on our turn, be it Mag-C, or Ash, or Droll, we had the outs to it. So what does this field end on? On our opponent's turn, we get to draw another card with Heat Soul. Firewall Dragon can bounce back 2 monsters on the field or grave. Dark Fluid can negate 2 monster effects. Singularity is a towers, unaffected because of Kashtira. It can also bounce back 2 cards that our opponent has on the field or in the grave. So this seems pretty good, right? All of this card advantage, all of these bounce effects, interruptions, based off only 1 starter. If we don't have access to a Chi-Chi, our other 1-card starter is Picari, because Picari, when normal summoned, can add I Meet You, and then we will just do the same thing, but with a Chi-Chi and Picari reversed. So here is our deck list. We have 8 1-card starters, which are a Chi-Chi, Picari, and of course I Meet You. Then we have the 1.5 card starter, which is Silent Mining, that we can use to search out a Chi-Chi by discarding an additional card from our hand. If we don't open any of those 11 cards, we can still go full combo with Circular. Circular can summon itself by sending Sigma to the grave. We summon Sigma, and then Circular will then add Equation to our hand. Then we simply overlay into Allen version to add Subtraction, link into Wicked, use Equation to summon back any Mathmech who our zone Wicked points to, and then from there, we can search out a Chi-Chi. And of course, since we didn't normal summon yet, we can just normal a Chi-Chi and then continue our Ignister lines by linking it off into Dark Infant. As you can tell, we have a ton of space for non-engine, so you can use 15 of your favorite hand traps or board breakers. For our extra deck, you saw how we used all of these cards except for access code on our first turn, so I think this is the exact extra deck you need to play. I still have 2 additional replays to share. The first one is how I played around Bystials against Dragonlink. The second one is how we can continue to play after getting Nibiru. Shout out to my friend Zeke for helping me test, since I am currently undefeated with this deck in Master Rank after they just keep conceding. Now let me know how you feel about this deck if you're excited for Cyberse Week Day 2 where we cover Mathmech. Thank you for watching. Until next time.